Kia ora and welcome to this episode of The Amateur Austenite. I'm Frances Duncan, an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of New Zealand. My guest with me today is Emma.
Hello.
And we are going to be discussing Letter 26 of Lady Susan by Jane Austen. Letter 26. Mrs. Johnson to Lady Susan. Edward Street. I am gratified by your reference, and this is my advice. That you come to town yourself without loss of time, and that you leave Frederica behind. It would surely be much more to the purpose to get yourself well established by marrying Mr. de Courcy, than to irritate him and the rest of his family by making her marry Sir James. You should think more of yourself and less of your daughter. She's not of a disposition to do you any credit in the world, and seems precisely in her proper place at Churchill with the Vernons. But you are fitted for society, and it is shameful to have you exiled from it. Leave Frederica, therefore, to punish herself for the plague she has given you by indulging that romantic tender-heartedness which will always ensure her misery enough, and come yourself to town as soon as you can. I have another reason for urging this. Mannering came to town last week and has contrived, in spite of Mr. Johnson, to make opportunities of seeing me. He is absolutely miserable about you, and jealous to such a degree of de Courcy that it would be highly unadvisable for them to meet at present. And yet, if you do not allow him to see you here, I cannot answer for his not committing some great imprudence, such as going to Churchill, for instance, which would be dreadful. Besides, if you take my advice and resolve to marry de Courcy, it will be indispensably necessary for you to get Mannering out of the way, and you only can have influence enough to send him back to his wife. I have still another motive for your coming. Mr. Johnson leaves London next Tuesday. He is going for his health to Bath, where if the waters are favourable to his constitution and my wishes, he will be laid up with the gout many weeks. During his absence we shall be able to choose our own society, and have true enjoyment. I would ask you to Edward Street, but that he once forced from me a kind of promise never to invite you to my house. Nothing but my being in the utmost distress for money could have extorted it from me. I can get you, however, a very nice drawing-room apartment in Upper Seymour Street, and we may be always together there, or here, for I consider my promise to Mr. Johnson as comprehending only, at least in his absence, you're not sleeping in the house. Poor Mannering gives such histories of his wife's jealousy. Silly woman, to expect constancy from so charming a man. She was always silly, and tolerably so in marrying him at all. She, the heiress of a large fortune, he without a shilling. One title I know she might have had besides baronets. Her folly in forming the connection was so great that though Mr. Johnson was her guardian, and I do not in general share his feelings, I can never forgive her. Adieu, yours, Alicia. Have we seen prior to this Mrs. Johnson being quite so unfiltered and nasty and catty?
I certainly think she's developing her own character. Previously she's been agreeing with Lady Susan and falling in with Lady Susan's plans and just echoing Lady Susan. But she's certainly got her own voice in this letter.
She talks shit about Frederica, she talks shit about her husband, she talks shit about even Mannering and Sir James and Mrs. Mannering. But no one really is spared.
But that's what builds up a friendship like this. You and I, Lady Susan, are better than all, we're smarter than all of these other people around us.
They probably are, except she is trapped in a marriage with Mr. Johnson's.
Yeah, I love this idea that he once forced from me a kind of promise never to invite you to my house. Nothing but my being in the utmost distress for money should have extorted it from me. I just wonder how that conversation went, how those two things were linked. You know, was it, I won't have her in the house, you can't stop me. Well, yes, I can, I'll cut you off your allowance if you ever have her in the house again. It can't just have been cutting off at the allowance, though, in that she was short of money, as in, I'll give you £100 if you promise never to have Lady Susan in the house again. I mean, how did that conversation actually go? The money and the promise. It's an interesting kind of transaction between a husband and wife.
I wonder if she came to him needing money.
Oh.
And he negotiated to give her the money.
Yes, I will pay off your milliner's bill if you never allow Lady Susan in the house again. Never to invite you to my house, which she's then transmuted to never to allow you to sleep in the house.
At least while he's away, you can be in it. But when he's here, you can't actually be in the house at all. But it's fine if you come visit. It'll be fine. She doesn't think much of him.
Well, she's scared enough of him, or she knows that he will enforce his word. She won't go against it with his knowledge when he's in town. So he does have some control over her.
She says, I do not in general share his feelings. However, because Mrs. Mannering married Mannering was such a matter of folly that she agrees with Mr. Johnson and can never forgive her. Was it that Alicia wanted Mrs. Mannering to make a better match, to get more money or title? Is that why she's upset at her? Why should it matter to her?
It's an interesting thing. Why should it matter to her? Simply that a charming man ought to marry a charming wife, not someone so insufferable as to expect fidelity.
To expect constancy from so charming a man. It sounds like something Lady Susan herself would say.
It does.
And they're victim blaming again.
Oh, yes.
I reckon Mrs. Mannering was seduced by Mannering. He's very charming, and he has no money, so he was probably a bit of a fortune hunter. He is a young woman, lots of money, gonna seduce her so she marries me, and then I have access to that money. Technically, it becomes his money.
So how silly of her to fall for that. It was her fault. It should have been obvious to her that he wasn't interested in her for herself.
How would she know? She's probably quite young.
Her folly in forming the connection was so great. I mean, I think the feeling that Mr. and Mrs. Johnson share is that they should not have married, but for exactly opposite reasons. Mr. Johnson, because Mannering isn't good enough for his wife, and Mrs. Johnson thinks Mrs. Mannering isn't good enough for her husband.
Another line that could easily be written by Lady Susan: you should think more of yourself and less of your daughter.
I underlined that as well. How could it be possible for Lady Susan to think more of herself? She thinks of herself 100% of the time.
Her daughter is only an obstacle or something that she can manipulate in her ploys.
It's sycophancy, which no doubt Lady Susan enjoys being sucked up to.
Lady Susan's talked about caring for Mannering, but Mrs. Johnson says, you're going to have to send him back to his wife. Only you can do it. Just cast him off like it's not that big of a deal.
Well, it's a game. They're both playing it as a game. I mean, you're right. She's assuming that Lady Susan has no feelings for Mannering.
Again, is she capable of feelings? Mm-hmm. He definitely has feelings for her. It's possible he may turn up at Churchill, just like Sir James did. He's held off on doing it because he's had contact with her, obviously, and he's smarter than Sir James.
And he thinks he's going to get Lady Susan in the end. I mean, not for marriage, but obviously for a spot of carnal knowledge, and that he's more likely to get that if he holds off.
Lady Susan apparently is fitted for society, and it's shameful to have her exiled from it. Staying with your brother-in-law is exile, apparently, or is it just being in the country is exile?
Well, they are very quiet and they don't know how to spend their money.
This is true. Leave Frederica to punish herself for the plague she has given you. Oh, you should marry the guy that your daughter's in love with. Just do it. It's her fault.
Actually, the plan here is not that bad, and that Frederica would be happy left at Churchill with the Vernons, and the Vernons would be happy with that situation too.
That's true.
The marrying Reggie would possibly be a little bit more distressing for Frederica, but I don't think she has that in her mind, because I can of course see inside this fictional character's mind. I think she just wants to escape Sir James as her primary goal at present.
Yeah, and she would be upset if her mother married Reggie, but getting to stay with people that care about her and not having to marry Sir James, you're right. I wonder about the use of drawing room apartment, whether that's like there's a drawing room so you can see people and maybe the bedrooms, etc., are not as grand.
That's an interesting question.
Originally, my brain was like, it's like a studio apartment, but I'm like, no, you would not be having people visit you in your bedroom like that.
Or I wonder if some apartments don't have drawing rooms.
Ah.
Although, why would you get an apartment without a drawing room?
Because you just need somewhere to sleep. You might be a bachelor. You're not going to be entertaining. You go to your club.
True. Or you'd be sponging off your friends like Lady Susan would usually do. In fact, it would be far cheaper because if you don't have a drawing room, then you can't entertain and you can't be expected to buy food and drink. I gather the poet Philip Larkin didn't have a dining table so that he could never invite people to stay for dinner.
That's a great idea. I like that idea.
I'm quite interested in Mrs. Johnson developing her own character and the importance of that in epistolary novels in general. But we can have a chat about that in another letter.
And that is our discussion of Letter 26 of Lady Susan by Jane Austen. I'm Frances Duncan. The links to my socials will be in the notes. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.